The late afternoon sun hung low over the sleepy town of Willow Creek, casting long shadows through streets lined with aged oak trees and faded brick storefronts. It was the kind of place where time moved slowly, where everyone thought they knew each other's stories, or so they believed. But today, beneath the calm surface, a tension simmered that no one could ignore. Inside the creaking community hall on Maple Avenue, the air was thick with whispered doubts and restrained anticipation. The room, worn by decades of celebrations and heartbreaks, was draped with tattered white fabric, faded streamers drooping unevenly from peeling walls. The scent of old wood mixed with faint traces of floral perfume, a reminder of both hope and history. Faces filled the space, neighbors, friends, and strangers, each carrying their own silent questions. Some exchanged nervous glances, others tried to mask disbelief behind forced smiles. They had gathered to witness a wedding, but it was more than a ceremony. It was a challenge to the very idea of who belonged where in Willow Creek. At the center stood Eliza Monroe, a woman whose quiet dignity held the room captive. 29 years old, with eyes as deep and restless as the river that cut through town, she was the daughter of the bakery owner down the street, a scholarship student turned journalist who had returned home chasing something she couldn't yet name. Tonight, she wore a simple ivory dress that hugged her figure, her hair swept back to reveal a face both beautiful and weary. But all eyes weren't on Eliza. They flicked nervously toward Caleb Trent, the man she was about to marry. Caleb stood awkwardly by her side, a stark contrast in his threadbare suit and scuffed shoes. His limp was visible, a subtle echo of battles known only to him. Rumors had followed him like a shadow since he arrived in town months ago, a man with no family, no steady work, no place to call home. To many, he was a question mark wrapped in worn fabric and silent sorrows. Whispers drifted through the crowd, sharp and low. "Why her?" one woman murmured. "Why him?" another asked, her voice tight with disbelief. Some stifled laughter, others exchanged pitying looks, all united by a shared certainty that this union was a mistake waiting to unravel. But Eliza's gaze never wavered from Caleb's. In his eyes, she saw something the world had missed, something fierce, tender, and unyielding. A love that defied the narrow definitions carved by judgment and fear. As the officiant called the room to quiet, the chatter faded. The wooden floor beneath their feet seemed to still, the stained glass windows catching the dying light and casting fractured rainbows over the faces before them. The town held its breath, caught between tradition and a future it was not yet ready to accept. This was more than a wedding. It was a reckoning. A story about seeing beyond the surface. About courage in the face of doubt. About two souls daring to choose each other, even when the world whispered they never should. And in the heart of that worn hall, beneath the weight of watching eyes, Eliza and Caleb stood ready to rewrite the meaning of love itself. Eliza Monroe's story was etched in the scent of cinnamon and warm bread, carried on the worn wooden floors of her grandmother May's bakery, a small, unassuming shop nestled on the corner of Willow Creek's Main Street. May, a woman of few words but fierce love, had raised Eliza with stories woven between flower-dusted mornings and evenings filled with quiet wisdom. "Life's about baking the right ingredients, honey," May would say, "but sometimes you have to add a little courage to make it rise." Those words shaped Eliza's spirit, giving her the strength to dream beyond the limits of a small town. From a young age, Eliza was a seeker, a girl who devoured books in the dusty corners of the public library and scribbled stories under the soft glow of a desk lamp. Her world expanded with every page, until scholarship letters arrived like invitations to a new life. She left Willow Creek for college, eyes full of ambition, heart full of hope. Journalism became her passion, a way to give voice to those unseen and unheard. But city lights, for all their shine, cast long shadows of loneliness and disillusionment. The hustle drowned out the sincerity she craved. Returning home wasn't a step backward but a choice, to reconnect, to fight for stories worth telling, and, secretly, to find a place where her heart could finally settle. Caleb Trent's path had been far less certain. Born in a neighboring town, his childhood was marked by absence and survival. His mother's passing left a void. His father's disappearance left scars deeper than any wound. Forced into adulthood too soon, Caleb learned early how to navigate a world that offered few chances to those who stumbled. Jobs came and went, relationships fractured, and the weight of loneliness settled heavily on his broad shoulders. Yet beneath the rough exterior lay a man who kept a quiet flame of kindness and integrity burning, even when hope seemed scarce. When Caleb arrived in Willow Creek months before meeting Eliza, He was a ghost seeking a fresh start. The town's wary eyes followed him like a storm cloud, wary of the outsider marked by hardship and history. But Caleb saw something in Willow Creek, a chance to rewrite his story, even if the ink sometimes blurred with doubt. Their worlds might have stayed parallel, passing like distant stars, had it not been for a chilly autumn evening at the local shelter. Eliza volunteered that night, handing out steaming bowls of soup, her eyes scanning faces worn by struggle. Caleb hesitated at the edge, pride battling hunger. Their eyes met, an unspoken connection sparked in a crowded, noisy room. "I'm Eliza," she said softly, offering him a plate. He took it with a tentative smile. "Caleb," he replied. What began as small talk unfolded into late-night conversations filled with laughter, shared dreams, and quiet confessions. Eliza saw beyond Caleb's worn jacket and cautious gaze. She glimpsed the man who carried kindness like a shield. Caleb found in Eliza a light that didn't judge, a warmth that offered refuge. Their friendship grew quietly, defiantly, as they learned to navigate not just each other's worlds but the judgments of a town unready for their union. Friends voiced concern, families exchanged worried glances, and whispers trailed behind them. Yet their bond remained unbroken, a testament to love's power to transcend circumstance and expectation. In choosing each other, Eliza and Caleb embraced vulnerability and courage, daring to hope that two souls, scarred but unyielding, could find solace and strength in one another's arms. The Harvest Festival was the kind of event that marked the turning of seasons in Willow Creek, a gathering of neighbors, families, and strangers under strings of glowing lanterns and the amber hue of a fading sun. That chilly autumn evening, the town square buzzed with the scent of roasted apples and the murmur of old tales retold beside crackling bonfires. Eliza had spent the day weaving through the crowd, juggling interviews for her column and sharing warm smiles, yet beneath her composed exterior, a restless ache tugged at her heart. Caleb Trent moved quietly along the edges of the festival, hands buried deep in the pockets of his threadbare jacket, eyes scanning the faces with a mixture of caution and hope. The weight of his past settled heavily on his shoulders, but tonight there was a flicker of something new, a chance to belong, even if just for a few hours. When Caleb hesitated at the soup kitchen line, pride and hunger wrestling within him, Eliza noticed. Without a second thought, she stepped forward, offering him a plate with a soft smile. "Here, this is for you." Surprise flashed in Caleb's eyes before he nodded, the first genuine smile breaking through layers of guarded weariness. Their conversation began awkwardly, small talk about the crisp air, the festival lights, but soon deepened into something honest and rare. Caleb spoke of lost chances, of roads that led nowhere, and dreams deferred. Eliza shared her hopes for the future, her wish to tell stories that mattered and to find a love that saw beyond appearances. In the weeks that followed, their connection blossomed in quiet moments stolen between hectic days, shared coffees at the town's worn diner, walks along the river where leaves drifted like memories, and evenings spent under starlit skies where silence spoke volumes. With every smile, every glance, Caleb's rough edges softened, revealing a man whose heart had been forged in hardship but was capable of fierce love. Eliza found herself drawn not only to his kindness but to the strength it took for him to keep moving forward despite the world's cold gaze. Yet, their growing bond stirred ripples in the calm surface of Willow Creek. Gossip spread quickly, voices questioning the wisdom of Eliza's choice. "Why him?" they whispered behind closed doors. "She deserves better." Even Julia, Eliza's childhood friend, voiced fears over late-night calls. "You're throwing away everything you've worked for," she pleaded, her voice breaking. But Eliza's resolve only deepened. Caleb was more than the worn coat and the limp. He was the man who stood beside her when hope seemed distant, who loved without condition. Their love was a quiet rebellion, a defiant stand against prejudice and expectation. Together, they dared to dream of a future unseen by others, a life defined not by wealth or status but by honesty, trust, and the kind of love that defies judgment. And as autumn turned toward winter, Eliza and Caleb began writing a story that was theirs alone, one of courage, redemption, and the unyielding power of true connection. As the golden leaves gave way to biting winds, the once quiet murmurs in Willow Creek grew into an unmistakable chorus of disapproval. What had begun as private doubts spilled into open judgment, painting Eliza and Caleb's love in shades of suspicion and concern. The town, steeped in tradition and wary of change, struggled to reconcile the ambitious daughter of the bakery with the rugged outsider she had chosen. Inside May's bakery, The warmth of ovens and the scent of fresh bread couldn't quite soothe the worry etched deep in her weathered face. One evening, as the autumn chill crept through cracked windows, May took Eliza's hands, her voice trembling with love and fear. "Child, I've watched you grow stronger than I ever imagined, but this path, it isn't easy. Caleb's life has been hard, and I fear it might pull you down with it." Eliza squeezed her grandmother's hands, understanding but undeterred. She knew Caleb's scars told stories of survival, not weakness. Yet the whispers outside were relentless, seeping through every corner of her world like an unforgiving frost. At work, the change was palpable. Colleagues who once admired Eliza's keen mind now offered thinly veiled skepticism. Invitations to events dwindled, the warmth of friendship cooled to distant politeness. Even her editor suggested, with a hesitant smile, that perhaps she should focus on stories that better suit her background, a subtle way of saying her personal life had become a liability. The hardest wounds, however, came from within her circle. Julia, once her closest confidant, grew distant, her concern manifesting as criticism. One late afternoon, in the dim light of a quiet cafe, Julia's voice cracked with emotion. "Eliza, I don't want to lose you, but Caleb's past, his struggles, they're not something you can ignore. You deserve a life without this burden." Eliza's heart fractured beneath the weight of those words. She longed for Julia to see what she saw, that Caleb was not a burden but a man who loved fiercely and had given her acceptance she'd never known. Still, isolation wrapped around her like a cold cloak. Meanwhile, Caleb faced the sting of suspicion and the reopening of old wounds. Job opportunities vanished as quickly as they came, doors closed before he could knock. Yet bitterness never took root. Instead, he funneled his strength into standing by Eliza, a quiet anchor in the storm threatening to overwhelm them. Their private moments grew fraught with whispered fears. Late at night, Eliza's voice would barely rise above a whisper. "What if they're right? What if love isn't enough?" Caleb's hand would find hers in the dark, steady and warm. "Then we build it, day by day, no matter the noise." Their decision to marry became a bold act of defiance, a declaration that their love was real, even if the world refused to see it. As the wedding day loomed closer, the town's disapproval grew louder. Invitations were declined, and the community hall, once a place of joy, felt like a battleground. But through it all, Eliza and Caleb stood firm. Their love, tested by prejudice and fear, became a testament to courage. They chose truth over appearances, bravery over comfort, forging a future together no matter the cost. Behind the steady smiles and determined faces, both Eliza and Caleb carried worlds of silent turmoil. In the quiet moments when the town's judgment faded into the shadows, their hearts whispered fears no one else could hear. Eliza often lay awake in the solitude of her room, staring at the ceiling as the night stretched endlessly before her. The warmth of the day's love seemed a distant memory when doubts crept in, small, insidious questions that gnawed at her resolve. Was she strong enough to face the relentless whispers? Could love alone bridge the vast gulf between their worlds? The worried eyes of her grandmother, May's gentle warnings, and Julia's tearful pleas echoed in her mind like a haunting refrain. What if the world was right? What if she was risking everything on a dream that might shatter? Her ambition, once a fierce flame illuminating her path, flickered in the face of growing isolation. At work, invitations faded, and once close friendships frayed like brittle threads. Every unopened door felt like a verdict. The world she longed to change might never embrace the woman she was becoming. Caleb's battles were quieter, but no less fierce. Beneath the rough exterior and worn clothes lay a man weighed down by memories and the scars of survival. His limp was a visible reminder of the struggles etched into his flesh, but the invisible wounds cut just as deep. Sometimes, in the solitude of night, doubt whispered cruel lies, that he was unworthy of Eliza's love, that his past would forever define him, that he was more burden than blessing. Yet, in the depths of his uncertainty, Caleb found strength in the very love that unsettled him. Eliza's unwavering belief gave him a reason to rise each morning with hope instead of despair. Still, the sting of rejection by the town, the lost opportunities, and the heavy weight of expectations often drove him into solitude, wrestling with fears of failure, not just for himself, but for the woman who had dared to see past his brokenness. Their private conversations beneath the stars became sanctuaries where vulnerability replaced bravado. Eliza voiced her fears in trembling whispers. Caleb listened without judgment, offering reassurance not just in words but in the steady squeeze of his hand. Together, they navigated the delicate dance between hope and reality, pain and possibility. It was in these raw, unguarded moments that their love deepened, a love not born of ease or certainty, but forged in the fire of shared insecurities and the courage to face a world that often refused to understand. As the wedding day neared, the storms within raged fiercely, but so did their determination. For Eliza and Caleb, love was both refuge and battlefield, a force powerful enough to challenge prejudice, heal old wounds, and light a path forward where none seemed to exist. The community hall was heavy with silence, the kind that presses against your skin and makes every breath feel like a secret waiting to be shared. Outside, the sky threatened rain, gray clouds swirling like restless spirits. Inside, the faded walls and creaking beams bore witness to a gathering held hostage by anticipation and judgment. Eliza stood at the front, radiant but steady, her eyes locked on Caleb. His figure seemed smaller than usual, weighed down not by the suit he wore but by the secret he carried, a secret that would soon shatter every expectation in the room. When Caleb stepped forward to take the microphone, a murmur rippled through the crowd, a blend of curiosity and disbelief. His hands trembled only slightly as he began, voice low yet resolute. "I know many of you have questions. Why I'm here, why Eliza chose me. You judge me by my clothes, my scars, my past. But today, I want to share a truth you don't know." Gasps fluttered through the hall like startled birds. Eliza's heart raced, a mixture of fear and hope swirling inside her. Caleb's eyes found hers, steady and full of quiet courage. "For years, I have lived behind this worn exterior," he said. "But I am not the man you think I am. I was born into privilege, wealth, opportunities, a life many would envy. Yet, none of it brought me peace. The expectations, the hollow victories, they left me empty." A hush fell. Faces turned pale, disbelief etched deep. Caleb's voice grew stronger, imbued with the weight of truth. "I chose to leave it all behind. I walked away from a life of comfort to find something no money can buy: love, authenticity, and acceptance." The room seemed to hold its breath. Eliza's eyes glistened with tears as the puzzle pieces of their story clicked into place. The worn suit, the limp, the quiet strength now explained not by misfortune but by choice. "I wanted to be seen," Caleb continued, "not for what I have, but for who I am. And Eliza saw me, the real me, long before anyone else did." Whispers faded into silence, replaced by a profound reverence. The man they had dismissed was extraordinary, not because of wealth or status, but because of the bravery it took to reveal his truth. As Caleb stepped back, the room seemed to transform. The faded streamers shimmered faintly, the light softened, casting a golden glow over the faces before him. Eliza moved forward, radiant in a gown that sparkled with understated elegance, her smile a beacon of unwavering love. Together, they faced the crowd, not as misfits, but as partners united by a love that transcended judgment and appearances. The ceremony continued, but the story belonged to all present now, a testament to courage, to seeing beyond the surface, and to the unshakable strength found in truth. And in that worn community hall, beneath the creaking rafters and watchful eyes, a quiet revolution began, reminding everyone that real love is not about the clothes we wear, the money we possess, or the opinions we carry. It is about the heart's bravery to be seen, and to see in return. The echoes of Caleb's revelation hung in the air long after the final vows were spoken. The once heavy community hall now seemed lighter, as if the very walls had been unburdened by truth. Guests sat in stunned silence, grappling with the unexpected depth of the story unfolding before them. Judgment softened, replaced by quiet reverence and a dawning understanding. Eliza and Caleb stood hand in hand, their love no longer questioned or hidden. In that moment, they were more than a couple defying social norms. They embodied the courage it takes to live authentically in a world eager to judge. Their story became a testament, not just to love, but to the bravery of truth and the power of seeing beyond appearances. Outside, the heavy clouds finally broke, and soft sunlight spilled over Willow Creek, bathing the town in warm golden hues. It was a new day, not just for Eliza and Caleb, but for a community beginning to open its heart to possibilities it had long resisted. In the weeks that followed, the whispers faded into conversations filled with curiosity and, eventually, acceptance. Some faces still held lingering doubts, but many embraced a new vision of love, one that transcended status, hardship, and expectation. The tale of Eliza and Caleb became quietly legendary, inspiring others to question their biases and open their eyes to the stories beneath the surface. Eliza returned to her work with renewed passion, writing stories that celebrated the unseen and the misunderstood, voices like hers and Caleb's. Her words resonated deeper, fueled by the journey that taught her the true beauty of love lies in its authenticity, not its perfection. Caleb found strength in rebuilding, not just for himself but for the life they would build together. He embraced his past without shame, knowing it was part of the man who chose love over fear. With Eliza by his side, he dared to dream again, fueled by a partnership rooted in trust and respect. Their love story was not one of fairy tales or flawless bliss but of two souls who faced adversity with open hearts. It was a reminder that love's greatest power lies in its ability to heal, to challenge, and to transform. At night, beneath a canopy of stars, Eliza and Caleb often sat together, grateful for the path that brought them here. They knew challenges remained. Life rarely offers easy answers, but together they faced the future with courage and hope. Their story stood as a beacon. When hearts are brave enough to see beyond appearances, when courage overcomes fear, love can break down every wall. And as the gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming wildflowers through Willow Creek, one truth remained clear: love, in its purest form, changes everything.